Okay, it's Monday. Let's do a little bit of quick review. So for me, most of the time when I come in the mornings, this is the first page I pull up as far as when I start actually planning. I always pull up the surface analysis. Kind of just shows me where all the fronts are going to be. Most of the time where we get all this green stuff is where there's bad weather right now, especially along this front. Do you guys remember what all our fronts are? So the blue one down here is the
Cold front,
red one.
warm front,
This pinkish purplish one.
included front,
And this one over here.
stationary front.
Nice. Most of the time with these occluded fronts, we end up with really bad weather, especially if the jet stream is, let me see if I can get a pen here. So in the winter, a lot of times you see the jet stream move down like this, or sometimes during this part of the year too, it starts to. But if we get the jet stream going kind of like that, these will just sit there and just rotate, and it's horrible. It's terrible weather, and typically we get a bunch of thunderstorms and low visibility, fog, all sorts of stuff there. So I'm kind of looking for the weather to be bad all up through here. I also kind of cheated because I worked today and I know that it's going to be bad right here.
Hey, Davis, question real quick. Down
Uh-huh.
by Louisiana, in
Yep.
that cold front, there's a little bit of red in there. So, what does
That
that
just,
mean? Does that mean that part of the front isn't moving, and then that part right there is stationary, and the rest is, or what
yeah, that's
exactly that is? There's a little blue or a little red in the otherwise other color.
just sort of a stationary front. It's not going to be that there's a, I mean, if you can see where it's pointing to, um, it's pointing backwards, so from where the front is moving. So for that reason, you'll be able to tell that that's just going to be like a little bit of a stationary front. Maybe that part's just not moving very much.
So would that mean that the rest of that cold front is kind of moving? It becomes like a hinge or a pivot, and the rest of it just kind of swing around, or
Pretty much.
how
It'll
does it
probably
tend to
end up,
move at that?
yeah, this will all probably end up kind of moving around toward the east. And then this may actually just kind of fade out into the Gulf.
Okay.
But if we look at we can go to our wind chart. We can kind of see where everything's getting pushed. So typically with those, it just means that the weather, like the wind, is going parallel with it. I like to start at 18,000. So most of it is just kind of coming through here, and it's kind of supporting that occluded front up here. And here it's just kind of going right parallel with that front, kind of parallel. Let's see if it's more clear at 30. Yeah, so this is going to push that front, that cold front that was right here. This is going to push that out to the east and probably swing it on up. So that occluded front is actually getting supported pretty well. With this down here, it's kind of almost pushing it up, kind of a little bit parallel with that front. So that's probably why it kind of turned a little bit stationary right here. The biggest one and easiest one to look at as far as where is our bad weather going to be is our TCF here. So we can see that right along that cold front, we've got a bunch of thunderstorms that are going to be here, a bunch that are going to be here, and then Florida is just, I mean, we're getting weather that's getting pushed in from the Atlantic and from the Gulf, and they're meeting right there, and we just thunderstorms. I mean, this is pretty much all day long, like all summer. We get thunderstorms that you guys remember when we were talking about wind that pushes up onshore, and if the two of them meet, then a lot of times we get thunderstorms. So that's a lot of the times during. If we go into the 6 hour, it probably starts to die down a little bit. Yeah, that kind of dies off. This stays. Basically, what that is the sun's going down, so the heat is not necessarily causing much of a lifting motion anymore. And then we can come in here and look at our convective sigmas and see that right along that cold front, there's a lot of thunderstorms right now. So this, as you remember, this shows us our IFR and MVFR. So right out in front of this occluded front, we're going to have a lot of fog, a lot of low visibility. The New Yorks, when I left, were actually starting to become a mess. When New York gets bad weather, JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark all pretty much share airspace. So a lot of times when they have bad weather up there, they go into GDPs, like ground delay programs, ground stops, all sorts of stuff. That's just the airspace up there is so congested. So we'll look at a few METARs up here. Looks like maybe Boston, maybe State College, Pittsburgh, maybe. We'll look at a few. Maybe down there towards New Orleans. There's some stuff going on down there. Yeah. Yeah, we'll look down there. And if we pull up this severe weather outlook, it basically just kind of confirms that weather is going to build along that front. It looks like we'll also have some stuff up here and maybe through here. A lot of this stuff is just because it gets hot, the air starts to lift, we get little pop-up thunderstorms. So we'll look at a couple. Um, okay. I don't want all this. Oh, no, no. Dang it. Yes. Trying to think of what. State College is one where the airport and the weather are different. I think there we go. UNV. So we get the weather from SCE, but the actual airport is KUNV. And they're very notorious for fog. All right. Somebody take away the specie here and tell us what's going on in the Guardia.
I'll take a go at it.
Oops, sorry.
There's a. Oh, what? Whoa.
Wait.
All right, specie. The Guardia. It's the on the 10th at 23:15 Zulu. From 040, 13 knots. Winds are 13 gusting at 22. 13 knots gusting at 22 knots. Visibility 3 statute miles. Light rain. Mist, I think.
Yep.
Broken at 700 feet AGL. Overcast, and that's our ceiling. I know, broken. Yeah, broken is our first ceiling.
Yep.
And then overcast at 1,800 feet. And the temperature is 18 Celsius. And our dew point is 16 Celsius, I believe.
Yep.
Remarks.
Well, this.
I forgot what that means.
It's our altimeter setting or reading, I guess.
Oh yeah,
like our
altimeter 30.12.
Yep. This is basically just saying that we have a surface viz. They're claiming the surface viz is 5 miles. So maybe this is a reading from the tower or just wherever the machine is at, but then somebody's down on the surface saying, no, we've got 5 miles. This is a pretty bad day in the Guardia. They probably have, I know they've had a GDP the entire day. I wouldn't doubt it if they had a ground stop during the evening rush of international flights. There's just so much going on in the airspace up there that this is a pretty bad day. You don't want to see this. JFK is going to be pretty similar. Notice the temperature dew point spreads here. We got in their METAR, we've only got 1 degree. In the specie, we've got 2 degrees. It's the same in JFK. Now, Pitt is actually a little bit. Pitt was actually horrible for most of the day, and now that that front is passing it a little bit, it's starting to get better. Let's see. Boston's pretty bad. Somebody want to take away Boston, this top specie here?
I'll do it.
All right.
All right, Boston at the 10th at 2311 Zulu, winds at 08014 knots, 2.5 statute miles, light rain, mist, few clouds at 16,000 feet, scattered clouds at 28,000 feet, our ceilings at 5,000 feet, 18 degrees Celsius, dew points at 16 degrees, altimeter 3028, remarks AO2, SFC visibility is 3, precipitation is, I think it's 0.02, is that right? Or is it 0.00?
0.02. I don't know why they ever did this many decimal points, because it's not like, nowhere's going to get 100 inches of rain.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, if there's more than like 9 inches of rain, like, just, yeah, so 0.02 inches of rain.
And temperature is 17.8 degrees. Dew point is 15.6 degrees.
Yeah. So these are actually, take another whack at these. So you
Few
said,
clouds.
yeah, few
16,
clouds. You said 16,000?
sorry, 1,600.
Okay.
1,000.
Yeah. Remember that this last place here in all these, think of that as, that's going to be the same as what your ceilings are going to be in your approach charts. So your approach charts don't go by the 1,000, they go by the 100. So when you start thinking about, okay, what do I need legal to go? I need, well, you don't really need the ceilings, but like, what are they going to need to land? They're going to need, 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet. So that's what these are going to correspond to. MDT, this is right around in that eastern Pennsylvania area. So all pretty similar. I mean, there's just a cloud layer right around 700 feet in most of these places. Most of them have mist, light rain, low temperature dew point spreads. Atlanta's actually doing pretty well, eh? Not doing too bad here.
So Davis, those low with there's a very small spread between temperature and dew point, like KMDT right there, 19/18.
Yep.
Does that also indicate very high humidity? Like we're very likely going to run into visible precipitation, am I understanding the extent of that? Because if it's a very large spread, then that means that it's very unlikely we're gonna run into any water problems. Is that?
Yeah. That's pretty well true. So the dew point is what this basically, if we were to cool down to the dew point, the water in the air is going to get saturated. That's when we run into fog. So at this temperature is when the air becomes completely saturated. So there's a lot of moisture in the air. So this low temperature dew point spread is typically indicative of like really low clouds, fog, mist, and then typically from that you end up with low visibility, low ceilings, stuff like that. So that temp dew point spread is typically a pretty good indicator of, are we going to have some fog issues, some low clouds, maybe visibility issues.
Oh, it's extremely unlikely if there's a big spread that we're also going to have low clouds.
Yeah.
Big spread almost universally goes with very high ceilings, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Cool. So I'm not as far off on this as I was fearing it was.
No. So how about, I was hoping to find one with vertical visibility, but why didn't somebody... Brian, you want to read for us? I guess, did you already read one?
No, not yet.
Okay, why don't you read State College here? This is where Penn State is. So that's why it's called State
Okay.
College or University.
All right. So at KUNV, is that the air or is
Yeah.
that just a weather station?
KUNV is the airport, and then SCE is the weather station.
Okay. All right. So at UNV, the wind is from, or so this was at on the 10th at 25 or 22:53 Zulu, and no wind.
Wind's calm.
3/4, yeah, or calm.
Yeah, so calm winds.
3/4 mile visibility, 3/4 miles, 3/4 statute miles.
Yep.
Moderate rain, mist, broken clouds at 200 feet, overcast at 1,000 feet. Temperature 13, dew point 13, altimeter 3003.
Yep. Yeah. So this fog will probably. I'm glad I'm not working tomorrow because I almost always end up with one of these flights, and this fog will just stick around. I mean, it's like right in a valley there, and it'll stick around all night probably. Okay. I don't need the surrounding meters unless there's a good one. Okay, so when we're looking at LaGuardia here, what ETA, I guess, would we need an alternate from? I guess that's kind of a weirdly worded question. So we would need an alternate from 23 Zulu on the 10th until 1 hour after this line. So 15 Zulu on the 11th. You guys see that? So 1 hour before that, and we would need an alternate. And then, I guess 1 hour after this line, we need an alternate. And then 1 hour before this line, we need an alternate. So we have broken 8, broken 8, broken 6, broken 6. And then it finally clears up here, and we wouldn't need an alternate as long as our ETA was an hour after this line. I guess more than an hour. Does everyone understand that?
Now, what's the FM in front of the time date?
From.
Okay.
So from 14 Zulu on the 11th. So from the 11th at 14 Zulu, that's when this weather starts. Or that's when they're predicting this weather to start. So how about on this one? When would we need an alternate for JFK?
From 23:39 Zulu on the 10th, or before that,
Be from
until
23 Zulu.
22. Okay.
Yeah, because this is good at 00 Zulu is when this is valid from.
Until about 1800 Zulu on the 11th. Looks like.
Do we need one on this line though?
Oh, sorry. 14 or 15. It would be that 15.
Yeah, 15. Does everyone get how we got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the scattered clouds are not the ceilings. The ceiling's broken clouds at 2,000 feet, which is the 2,000 feet of the 321
Yeah.
or the 123.
So
Depending on how you
we
read it.
don't need it at 2,000 feet. So the wording on that, yeah, is like you were saying, is less than 2,000 feet or less than 3 miles. Okay, what about Pittsburgh? We're flying to Pittsburgh and we're trying to figure out when we need an alternate. So when do we need an alternate for Pittsburgh? Somebody who hasn't spoken yet.
Is it on the 11th at, is it 600 Zulu?
So we're going to need it an hour before this, though.
Right.
Yep. So from 5 Zulu.
I don't know. I can't really read Zulu very well.
just think of it as the. So we need it from an hour before 6 until. Do we need an alternate on this line?
No.
Nope. So until an hour after this line, because we need one on this one. So we need one an hour after this line is valid. So from 5 Zulu to 22 Zulu, we need an alternate.
Okay. On the 11th, not on the 10th.
Yep, on the 11th. It would only be on the 10th at 23 Zulu, like we were talking about on this one. So we needed one at on the 10th from 23 Zulu because this starts at 00 or 24. So an hour before that would be 23 Zulu on the 10th.
What time is 24? Is that like midnight?
Midnight Zulu. That would be.
I think it's +6, right?
Yeah, I think we're
For
+6
us,
right
yeah.
now. So it'd be like 18. Like 6 o'clock here. But just think about it in Zulu.
Okay.
But yeah, 24 is like midnight Zulu. So that's in is it Greenwich? I might be butchering that.
Greenwich, England. They have a weird accent.
Yeah, Greenwich.
Midnight Zulu was 2 minutes ago.
Ah,
Boom. It's the next day already. Is it in London?
It's pretty close to it.
Okay. But
Yeah,
so
it's
the
a
international
suburb.
date line comes like kind of snakes down, but it's like right here. And that's just what we base everything off of. And then we're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 time zones away. Probably exactly where my mouse was too. Kidding. I was hoping to find something with really bad ceilings. Have you guys seen this yet? This VV and 3 numbers?
He told us about it, but we haven't seen it on a meter.
Okay. It exists. I saw them today at work. But basically it is just, it'll be VV for vertical visibility and then 800. I don't know why, once again, they did 3 decimal points. Like nobody's going to report vertical visibility at, 10,000. At that point, they're just going to say like overcast 10,000. It's typically only in really low uh, ceilings, like 100, 200. I think that might be the highest one I've ever seen is 200. Wonder if I can find one. This is not what I meant to do. Let's see what the DC area is doing. Did not get one, but we got an RVR. So if you were reading this, you would just say 1 statute mile visibility. RVRs on one right were reporting between 5,500 and 6,000. All right, so we're going to do some worksheets on Legal to Go. So if you go to the drive, first pull up your JEP charts. And we'll use these. And then let's pull up that first one. Why is it not letting me pull it up in a new tab?
Is this something I can run upstairs and print off real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Something? All right, I'll be back in like 3 minutes.
Okay. All right, while he's gone, do you guys want to know the answers to the quiz?
Yes.
You got them?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's recorded, so let me, you'll still be able to get it.
I
I
don't think
know.
he would get just without me again.
Maybe if he watches it again, he'll get them. I just cracked my neck, and I don't know if that came through the microphone or not, but it was really satisfying.
It's like the first thing I do when I wake up. Just wake up, standing there, and just like crack your neck. It's the best feeling.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I don't know if it's bad for you or not, but I've heard
I
it
don't
isn't.
know. I haven't been to a chiropractor in like 2 weeks, though, so I'm pretty crunchy right now.
Oh, nice.
Only 2 weeks?
Yeah, I typically go to one like every week. If I don't, I just get all out of whack. Let me pull up these jet charts here. Okay. Where's the Salt Lake one? Salt Lake, believe it or not, actually has the worst turbulence I've ever flown in. But it was really only like one time.
I'm back.
Okay. I don't think I've ever done this arrival either. I think almost every time I've been routed in from the south. Most of the time on the Bear. Or the Spain, I guess, too.
I can't really see what you're talking about.
Oh, yep. Sorry.
I mean, I'm trying to follow, but you know.
Oh, it's just, I was pointing at arrivals. I don't think I've ever arrived from the north into Salt Lake. And I've flown in from there from like a bunch of different cities. Okay.
Going on page 7?
What?
You're on page 7?
On page. I just scrolled down now. Now I'm onto the charts. Okay, so for this first one, we're just going to use the ILS or localizer to 34 left. Sorry, I X'd out of it. Okay. We're just using the ILS at 34 left. So just page 15 here. And then let's see. On numbers 4 and 5, note them out your approach light system. So 4 and 5, we do not have an ALS. It's out. So in there you would see the NOTAM. I wonder if I can even find an. I doubt I could find a NOTAM. But yeah, just say approach light system out on 4 and 5. All right, ready, go.
I think I might have missed something. Are we just going through this piece of paper, or are we using any charts to figure anything out?
So go through this piece of paper and then use this chart to find out what your legal minimums are. So the Jeppesen charts, if you go to the flight planning folder in the drive.
Okay. Then probably Jeppesen charts.
Yep. And then pull up Salt Lake.
Okay.
And then I want everyone to figure out what your legal minimums are. And then on 4 and 5, I want you to figure out what the legal minimums are. Base those on your approach light system being NOTAMed out.
Can you repeat those again, please?
So on 1 through 3, I want you to find out what your legal landing minimums are based off this chart. And then on 4 and 5, I want you to find out what they are based upon your approach light system being NOTAMed out.
All right, thank you.
Yep. And then, yeah, base your answers off those.
What is the page on that chart we're using?
Page 15.
15. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Davis, will you put that other page back up on your screen?
Oh, yeah, sorry. All right, is anybody still working?
I am, but I got a late start to it.
Oh, okay, yeah, no worries.
All right, I am done.
All right.
So if I last one, then
Is anybody else still working? All right. So what did we get our legal to go minimums as? For 34 left.
I got 200 feet, 1800 RVR.
Yep. So this 3/8 will actually, I mean, I don't know, depending on what company you work for, you might use 3/8, but most of the time we would just call that 1/2. But yep, and then 200 feet. So if your ETA is 2300 Zulu, is it legal to dispatch the flight?
Yes.
Yes. Do you require an alternate?
Yes.
Yes. So we require an alternate because we're landing. No, sorry. This is valid from 22 until 01. So at 23, we're going to have less than 3 miles of visibility and less than 2,000 foot ceiling. So pretty low. We're going to have to take that one down to minimums. If your ETA is 020, do you need an alternate?
No, you.
Yeah, technically you don't. Because 1 hour before is 01, and that's when this starts. I might put one anyway, but that's just me. To each his own.
I probably would too.
And then if you don't need an alternate, clearly you're legal to go. So at 070, you legal to go?
Yes.
And do you need an alternate?
No.
Okay. So now on 4 and 5, you remember I told you our approach light system is modemed out. So what did we get our legal to go minimums as?
$203.
200 and 3/4, yeah. So our minimums are a little bit higher. It's 14 Zulu. Are we legal to go?
Yes.
Yes. Do we need an alternate?
No.
Nope, we don't. So at 1630 Zulu, is it legal to dispatch?
No.
Are you sure?
I think so.
So this is why I did this.
Only a half of visibility, right?
Well, at 1630, we're technically still going to be in this line.
Yeah, but that's still an hour. Half hour later, it's going to be a half mile.
We don't have to use the 1 hour the ETA window for legal to go. We just use that for alternates.
Okay.
So this is actually still technically legal to go because at its ETA we have our legal landing minimums. But so does it require an alternate?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. That's not what you want, especially if the approach light system's out. So
Now, Davis, or there's like a 5-hour gap between each of the things. How does that work for our 1 hour before, 1 hour after? Do we just basically go from the line at 1200 and the line at 1700 and use those values?
Yep. So this line is forecasted to start this weather, if it goes. Okay, so, wow, it's not highlighting. Okay, so from 12 Zulu is when they're forecasting that we're going to start having this weather. So 4 statute miles of visibility and overcast at 2,000 feet. So they're forecasting this to last from 12 Zulu all the way to 1700 Zulu. So at 13 Zulu, they're still forecasting this to be predominantly the weather. Same with 14, 15, and 16 Zulu. It's still going to be this. And they're forecasting it to not change until 17 Zulu. And then from 17 Zulu, they're forecasting this all the way until we go back up here. And you see this is valid from 22 Zulu on the 8th to 18 Zulu on the 9th. So this weather is forecasted to be a half mile visibility from 17 to 18. So everything.
So basically, any flight that is due to arrive between 1200 and 1700, you're going to require an alternate because you don't know. Like, so even if it's ETA arrival is 1230, you're still going to put in an alternate because the next line down is going to require it.
Well, no, we've still got 5 hours.
Okay.
So if our
okay,
ETA is 13 Zulu, what's an hour before?
So 13 Zulu is 1200 Zulu. So
12 Zulu is when it starts. And then an hour after would be 14 Zulu. So in our ETA window, we still have the same weather.
Okay. So, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. So basically anything arrival ETA up to 1600, you're just using the information on that line for the 1200 line.
Yeah, for your ETA window.
Right.
for your alternate. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's all I'm trying to figure out is the alternate. So if you've got something scheduled to arrive at 17:05, you're not legal to go because of the visibility
Yeah.
is off.
So if the approach light system was out, we would need 3/4, so it's not legal to go.
Gotcha.
But if our ETA was even like 16:59, we're legal to go. And I've actually seen that happen before.
Okay, so legal to go is just the specific time of arrival, not the window before or after.
Correct.
And okay, so basically, all right, so I think I got it now. So if you're basically scheduled to arrive at 15:59, then you don't have to worry about it. You technically aren't requiring an alternate.
Correct.
Probably put one in there for prudence because of the deteriorating weather, but
Yeah, you could.
legally it's not required.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
All right, does anyone have any questions on this? Okay, let's go to this chart again. You guys don't have to pull it up. You can just see it on here. So 34 left. If we only have 34 left, what would our alternate minimums be? If the approach light system is in service, what are our alternate minimums here? If we only have this one runway, only this one runway. Everybody write it down, and then we'll answer it and talk about it. So this is as if we were using Salt Lake as our alternate. Okay, so what did everybody get? If we were using this as our alternate, what weather would we absolutely need here?
A vague memory of doing this at one point, but I'm going to guess 200 feet and 1800 RVR.
Nope, that's legal to our ETA.
Dang.
Yeah, so you
We're
remember
talking about, but I
this
don't
is
remember.
the one nav aid, two
Round
nav aid
up.
rule.
Yeah.
Is this ringing a bell for anybody? So if we're using one nav aid at our ETA, we have to add 1 mile and 400 feet. So 1 mile to the visibility and 400 feet to the ceiling. So if this is the only runway we have, and we're flying from, let's say, so we do this a lot actually in the winter. So we're going to Pocatello. We're going to Salt Lake to Pocatello, and then we're looking for a good alternate for Pocatello. A lot of times it's really close. We just try and get back to Salt Lake. So now we have to look at our weather. Let's say it's just snowing really hard all across the Rockies, and we're trying to figure out what our alternate minimums are in Salt Lake. And so we're actually gonna leave from here, but we're also gonna use it as our alternate. So I'm coming in here and I'm like, well, okay, if I've only got runway 34 left, sorry. My alternate minimums, if I'm using one nav aid, so one runway, are just gonna be based off of this. So I would have to add 1 mile and 400 feet to these legal minimums here. So I would have 1 plus, we're just going to call this, is everyone okay if I just call this 1/2?
Yes.
Okay. This is just 1/2 now. So 1 plus 1/2. We've got 1.5 miles now. So now our alternate visibility has got to be 1.5 miles. So then 200 plus 400 now we have to have 600. So do you guys remember? So we can dispatch to our destination without the ceiling. Do you guys remember, do we have to have the ceiling for an alternate?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely we do. If this was all we could use, and let's say our ceiling dropped to 500, could we use this anymore?
No.
Nope. No, we couldn't. So,
Now-
but go ahead.
I have a question on the one navigate, two navigate rule.
Okay.
So I was thinking that it was 2 navigates per runway. Is that correct, or is it because there's 2 runways, each with a navigate? That's the 2 navigates.
So it's because there's a runway each with 2 navigates. So this has. So we can't use. It's not going now. Okay. So 34 left. We're using this ILS, so we can't use 34 left again. But let me see if I can find 16 right. Do we have 16 right? So 16 right. As long as it's a different navigate, we can use this one as a separate runway. But the winds have to be okay for each. So we can't have a 10 knot tailwind on one of them. So if the winds are over 10 knots, we can't use it. So we could use that, and I've done this before actually in practical real life situations. I've used somewhere that had like, maybe they only had one runway, and you can look and see, okay, there's an ILS on 16 and there's an ILS on 34. You can look at the codes up here. So IUAT and IBNT. So those are different nav aids. So, well, that's on 17. Whoops. 34 left. Yeah, IUUH. So those are different nav aids. So we could use those if the winds were calm. Yeah, we could use both. So if we could use both of these, okay. So we've got 16 right. So let's just say winds are calm and that we can use both. With our 2 nav aid rule, we can add, and let's just say that we only have 16 right and only 34 left here. Okay, so $16 right. So with the 2 nav aid rule, we can add 200 and 1/2. So we'll just look at our minimums here, and we'll say this is 200 and 1/2. Those are our landing minimums. So, but we're going to have to use both runways to calculate this because we have to use the highest of both. So now if we go down to 34 left, as we figured out earlier, our illegal landing minimums are also $200 and 1/2. So those are both the same. So all we would have to do is just add 200 and 1/2 to either one of them, really. So now our alternate mins are what?
401.
401. So we add a 1/2 and we add 200. So we end up with 401.
Okay, I'm not sure I follow why you are you just adding the two runway mins together?
So if we have one navade, we have to add 401 mile to the minimums.
Right, I get that.
If we have two navades, we have to add 200 and 1/2 to the landing minimums. So these are the landing minimums here.
Okay, so the standard number for one navade is 400 feet and a mile. The standard number for two navades is 200 feet and 1/2 a mile. It just so happens that that's the same.
Yeah.
That's the addition, and we're just happen to have a runway width, a normal minimum of 200 and 1/2. So it looks like you're adding the two together. Really, you're adding two separate values.
Exactly. Let me see if I can find one that's not that way. I mean, I have to get out of Salt Lake. Salt Lake has...
It looked like you had one down there that was 250 foot minimum, which would round up to 300.
Yeah. Okay. So if we had... So if we only have the LDA to 35, what are our... So this is the only runway we're using for our alternate. What are our alternate minimums here?
One and a
900?
sorry, 700.
I got 7.
Yeah, 700 and 1.5. So we add 400 feet to it. And 1. So, do you guys know the reciprocal to 35?
17.
Yep. Where's that? Okay. So let's just say we only have this piece of concrete there. We only have 17 and 35. So this one is, what do we have for our landing minimums here?
$200 and 1/2.
Yeah, 200 and 1/2. So if we have 200 and 1/2, and then we go down here, so this is 17. So now we're on 34, or 35, sorry. We're on 35. And like we just said, we have 300 and 1/2 as our landing minimums. So now, using the 2 navade rule, what are our alternate minimums?
500 feet
500
and 1 mile.
Yep, 501. So these are the same, so it doesn't matter which one we take. But now we take the bigger of the two, which is this guy. And we add 200 to it. So we end up with 501. So let's just say that this is not 1/2 and that it is 3/4. So now what would our alternate ends be?
501 1/4.
501 1/4. So we take the bigger number for the ceiling, and then it doesn't matter which runway it's on. Then we take the bigger number for our visibility, and we add the 1/2 to that. So we end up with 501 1/4. Does everyone understand that?
Yes.
All right, cool. So what do we add for the one nav aid rule?
401.
Okay, and for the two nav aid rule?
200.5.
Okay, and if we're using the two nav aid rule, it has to be to separate but suitable runways. What that means is that it has to be a different nav aid. So we're looking at our nav aid here. This is the LDA. So that's the IUTJ. This is the ILS for 34 right. We're looking at the ISLC. So these are the names of the nav aids there. The IUU. Also, if we're taking into account separate but suitable runways, it means we have to take into account winds. If we're using the one nav aid rule, we do not have to take into account winds.
Can you repeat that about the winds?
So with the two nav aid rule, we have to take into account separate but suitable runways. So we have to take into account the winds. That's for the two nav aid rule. They will want that wording on your practical. Separate but suitable runways. And that means that we have to take into account, we have to have separate nav aids to separate runways, and they have to be legal winds.
What are legal winds again?
So we can't have a 10 knot tailwind. Did we go over that for this airframe? That would have been, I guess, in the very beginning. The max all. See if I can find it. Because it would also include crosswinds and stuff too, but that's typically not a huge issue. So if it's the one nav aid though rule, we do not have to worry about winds.
So with the two nav aid rule, the separate but suitable runways. So the 3517, that's two separate runways because, or
So it's
just
two
because
separate
it's
runways. We've
concrete.
got, it's two different nav aids, even though it's the same piece of concrete. It is two different runways because there's two different headings with two different nav aids. So it's technically runway 17 is different from runway 35.
What's to stop us from taking a two navade rule situation and then just dropping one of the navades and using the one navade rule?
Absolutely nothing. I do it all the time.
Sweet.
So, I mean, like if you're trying to add an alternate to, let's say you would be due back to Salt Lake at 10 Zulu. So if we're due back at our alternate at 10 Zulu, which weather line are we looking at?
700 Zulu.
Yeah, so we're looking at this line here. So all I have to do is go and find one chart that's good enough. I mean, that's like, if I find one chart that's good enough and I can get 1.5 and 600, I'm not even going to look for another one. You don't need to. It's just I mean, you can if you want to, just in case like if it drops. But I mean, this looks like it's going to be good weather for, 3 hours before you get there, and then another 2 hours after you get there. It's going to be no ceiling and 5 miles of visibility. So, do you really need to use the 2-nav-8 alternate? No. Winter operations is when you end up needing to use the 2-nav-8 alternate, and you will see people panic when airports go down. Like sometimes, trying to think of a good example. So, like a lot of people use Cleveland as an alternate for Detroit, and Cleveland typically has 4 good runways. I can't remember. I think they might have 4 ILSs too. But 2 of the runways are closed right now, and they have been for a while. So if we were using that as our alternates, if we got those 2 runways closed, now we're looking at a 2-nav-8 rule, and the winds have got to be good enough for us to be able to use the runways that are on the same piece of concrete. So if all of a sudden the wind kicks up more than to like a 15-knot tailwind, and now we have to use the 1-nav-8 rule, you'll see everybody like scurrying to change their alternate because it's technically not legal anymore. Or, I mean, this all the time, we're like during the winter with snow and fog, that places will be forecasted for 1 mile of visibility for hours, and it might be the best weather within like 200 miles. And so you have to use the 2-nav-8 rule to get your mins. So it can get down to the nitty gritty a fair amount, and you have to know how to do it. But if you see a situation like this where it's like just great and you want to use the 1-nav-8 rule, yeah, you can use it. Doesn't matter. Does anybody have any questions right now? We're going to do these pretty much like the rest of class, and then I'll do a little review for the quiz at the end.
When did we need to use the 2-nav-8 rule? When weather's
Just when weather's bad. I mean, if you don't have alternate minimums with the 1-nav-8 rule, then use the 2-nav-8 rule if you can.
So I'm looking at an alternate. The weather's not awful, but it's above 1-nav-8 rule minimums. I can use the 1-nav-8 rule.
Yeah, you could.
And if it's more on the bad side of things, it's beneath the 1-nav-8 rule, but above the 2-nav-8 rule with suitable runways, that's when I can use that as a suitable runway for an alternate.
A lot of times, if weather is iffy, though, you'll go ahead and you'll want to know what your lowest possible mins are, and then a lot of people actually will write it down on like a little note card in front of them. Like Detroit alternate mins right now are, 401. So then they just know, that's okay. This is what I'm looking for. Like if I see a TAF change or if I see a METAR drop, that's what I know I'm looking for. Whereas then you don't have to go back and figure it out like 2 or 3 times. So if it's close, a lot of times people just go ahead and figure out the 2-nav-8 rule. let's meet back at 7:30, and we'll do some more of these, and then toward the end of class, we'll do some review over what the quiz is going to be on.
Sounds good.
Rex, do you remember how to get to these charts?
I don't have the links for this class. If they're the same as last class, then I do.
Yeah, it should be the same as last class. There should be in your flight planning folder will be the approach charts.
Got it. Thank you.
And then I'll keep up the other page. So in LAX, we're using ILS or localizer to runway 4 right. This TAF appears to be a fake. You guys ever heard of snow in LA?
Nope.
That's all right. I mean, it looks legit. I guess it's real. I'll have to ask Garrett or Adam about that. That's pretty funny. All right, so we're going to use the ILS localizer to 24 right. That is going to be LA is a super weird airport to be in the cockpit of in like a really small plane. The last time I flew into LA, I was in a CRJ 200 coming from St. George, and I was in the jump seat. I was doing part of my like required jump seating. And I had never really flown in and out of LA very much. And we got there, and I quickly realized how many massive jets there are there. I mean, you just look around, and everything is like 777s, 74s, 787s, like A380. I mean, it's just huge planes. And then I'm in this like little CRJ 200, just kind of skipping along. It's kind of a funny feeling.
Which runway are you using?
24 right. Getting there. Eventually I'm getting there. I swear. They almost never use these 6s and 7s. I think I've seen it once.
Page 36, I think.
There we go. Yep, page 36.
I used to have a job that flew me into LAX. I'd probably flown into LAX probably about 30 or 35 times in my life. And once they reversed it and I came in from the ocean side.
Really? Was it late at night?
No, actually, it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
That is rare. Yeah, I've seen it once, and other than that, they will land on it at night when there's not a lot of traffic. But when there's a lot of traffic during the day, I mean, they will land 9-knot tailwinds. I mean, just all day long.
And that was probably the problem. It was a time of very severe Santa Ana wind.
Oh, yeah, okay. That could be it then. They do it once a year, just as like a practice. And then every now and then it actually does happen for the winds.
Yeah, I think they had like 20 knot winds.
Yeah.
Particularly, you could really feel it.
All right. A little bit different looking chart here, approach plate, I guess. But still the same. Don't let it throw you. I think what we'll do is we're going to do this. Well, it's not going to make much of a difference. We'll just do the whole thing. Everything's in service.
Can you remind me what the P is for again? I forgot.
The P?
Yeah, just before the visibility statute miles.
Oh, plus. Like more than.
Less. Okay, thanks.
All right, is anybody still working on it?
Davis, can you send me the link for the flight planning folders? I can only get the lesson plans folder on that old link.
Yeah, let me see if that'll work.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So, is it legal to dispatch a flight with an ETA of 23Z?
Yes.
Yes. Do you require an alternate?
No.
Correct. What about an ETA of 020? Is it legal to dispatch the flight?
It is not, because you have a quarter-mile visibility.
Correct. So, since we're not legal to go, of course we don't need an alternate. Well, I mean, technically you'd probably just delay it and you still would need an alternate. I'm still I gotta know if this is real or not. The snow. On the 8th of something, I don't know. Anyway, your ETA is 11Z. Are we legal to go?
Yes, we are legal to go.
Yes. Do we need an alternate?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. All right, 15Z. Are we legal to go?
Can we take a step back? What are the one and two Navigate rules for number 3?
Oh,
Just so that we
I
can
was going
hammer
to do
that
those in a minute. Let me do those in a minute.
Oh, well, yeah, that's fine.
Because right now, technically, this is just our destination right now. We'll talk about it in a minute if we were going to use it as an alternate. Well, we'll go back through that.
Okay.
So what is our ETA? So our ETA is at 15Z. Are we legal to go?
Yes,
Yes. Do we require an alternate?
we do,
We do.
because ceiling is at 1,200 feet.
Yep, because of that one right there. So at 2230, is this legal to go?
Yes.
Yes. Do we need an alternate?
No.
Nope, we don't. Did anybody have any questions on that?
When you're putting up a flight with an ETA within 30 minutes of the ETA being at the end of the TAF, how does that play into the next one? Because we can't really tell an hour after that. How does that come into?
Remember this?
How-
So this is from the 9th at 21Z, and it's valid until the 9th at 24Z. So this is when it ends.
Yeah, of course. That's why I got the answers I did. But if it was like at 23:45 and our thing ends at 24, what of our because we can an hour ahead.
Yeah.
After,
so you don't know for an hour after, but that flight is going to be so long. I mean, this covers over 24 hours. So there would be a new TAF that came out.
Okay, so it just comes to the situation that when we get there, we'll have more information.
Yeah, when you got to that point, you'd have more information. We kind of just use these as like so that we can do a much more questions off of just the one TAF. But yeah, so how often does a TAF come out?
I think
4
it
times
was
a day.
24 hours.
Every 6 hours.
So yeah,
0006
4 times a day,
12.
every 6 hours. So by that point, yeah, you'd have a new one. I don't think there's a plane that can actually stay in the air that long. All right, so if we were using this 24 right and only 24 right for an alternate, so if we're using LA as an alternate and all they have is 24 right, what are our alternate minimums?
600 and 1
600 and 1.5. So let's say that we have 24 right and 25 left. And let's say we're going in at so we divert from our airport and we're supposed to get to LA at 22:30 Zulu. Can we use both those runways?
What were the runways we were using?
24 left and 24 right.
What was our ETA?
22:30. Basically what I'm asking is, do we have the wind for both these? So they've got to be separate but suitable.
They're both under 10 knots of wind. One
Yeah.
from the east, one from, I don't know, south or east southeast.
Yeah.
So
So they're both still good. So if we were using, we need to get some worse runways. Well, actually this won't work. So what would our alternate minimums being using 24 left and 24 right with the 2 nav aid rule?
$400 in 1 mile.
$400 and 1.5 miles, right?
1.25.
It would be 1 1/4. This is 3/4. So we've got.
I got it now. I was reading the wrong chart.
Oh, okay. So we've got our lowest is 3/4. And the other one's at 1/2. So we're going to take the bigger one. And this one's also at 200. And this one's also at 200. So this is left and right. So we take the bigger one here, and then either one of these, and then add 200 to it. So we end up with 400. And 1 1/4. So this is actually a really good way to set it up. So put your lowest 2 on here. So this would be 24 left, 24 right. And put the ceiling, the visibility, ceiling, the visibility. So take the biggest one and add 200 to it. Then add 1/2.
This might be a dumb question, but how do you know when to use the ILS versus the localizer?
Well, which one has better minimums?
The ILS.
Yeah, so would you really want to use the localizer?
Nope.
The only time you're going to use the localizer is if the glide slope is out. So if there's a NOTAM in there for, so if say if there were this one, 24 left, and we had a NOTAM for 24 left, glide slope out, then we would use the localizer. That's pretty
Okay.
much the only time.
Do you see that very often in real life?
Yeah, it happens maybe. I bet I see it about once a week.
Huh. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean it just depends on the airport. Like they note them out ILSs all the time and glide slopes all the time for like an hour or so, and it'll just be maintenance. But every now and then you will see like glide slopes out, it's just broken, and all you got's the localizer until somebody gets out there to fix it. So let's do. Whoops. Let's do this last worksheet. Okay, going into Phoenix. So we're going to use the ILS to 7 right. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do this one. All right, is anybody still working? All right, so we're flying to Phoenix. Our ETA is 9 Zulu. Are we legal to dispatch?
Yes.
Yes. Do we require an alternate?
Yes.
Yes. I don't know where they're finding these taps. Phoenix with snow too? This one
It's cold here.
looks possibly doctored. All right, we're flying and our ETA is 10:55 and we're only using 7 right. Are we legal to dispatch?
No.
No, because at 10:55 we're going to have 1/2 mile visibility. And we need 3/4. So let's say we delay it a few minutes and now our ETA is 11:15. Are we legal to dispatch?
Still no.
Still no.
Can you explain how you got number 1?
Um,
How you got yes on number 1?
at 9Z.
Yeah, because if it's an hour after 9, which would be 10, right? At a half mile, would that not be okay then?
We'd be legal to go, yeah, but we still require an alternate.
Is the minimums 3/4 mile, or did I get
Yes.
the minimums wrong?
No, the minimum. You got the minimums correct. We're legal to go though because the ETA. We're only looking for legal to go. We're only looking at our ETA, so we don't have to look at our ETA window.
Oh, okay, I
Yep.
understand. I got you. Thank you.
Yep. No, thanks for asking. All right, now we have delayed it further. Now we're going to be in at 17 Zulu.
Yes.
Yes, it's legal. Do we require an alternate?
Yes.
Yes. So at 21 Zulu, are we legal to dispatch?
Yes.
Yes. And do we require an alternate?
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, we'll take that bad boy to minimums. So if all we had was 7 right, what would be our alternate mins? So say we're flying somewhere near Phoenix and we're going to use Phoenix as an alternate.
$901 3/4.
900?
Sounds right to me.
Wouldn't it be 7?
Yeah, 7.
Oh wait, no, I was glide slope out. Never mind.
So yeah,
Wrong.
it'd be when we add 401, it'd be 1 3/4 and 700. Yeah, make sure you're looking at the lowest one here.
Yeah, I was looking at the glide slope out just over to your right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so was I.
So let's say, okay, so let's say we're flying to, we'll just say we're flying to like Flagstaff. And we're going to use Phoenix as an alternate. And the only runways we have are 8 and 7 right. What would our alternate minimums be then?
$500, 1.25.
Does everyone agree with him?
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. So we've got, so up here, we've got 3/4 and 300. And then down here, we've got 1, 300. So these are both the same. Doesn't matter which one we use that. But this one, we have to use the bigger one. So that's how we get the 1.5 and 500. Does everybody get that now?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. All right. Let's pull up some of our taps before. Ooh, I wonder what Monterey's doing right now. No. Monterey was really foggy earlier today. Looks like it will be again tomorrow morning. So, am I going to totally mix you guys up if I make you use a TAF from one airport but charts to another?
Yes.
We're just going to pretend.
No.
We're going to pretend that the bad weather in State College is actually in... Oh, it's not even that bad anymore. Now I'm going to have to find another bad one.
So we use TAFs, not METARs for planning, or just both? Or
We use both. So if we're under an hour, the METAR and the TAF both have to be legal to go. Like if the flight time is under an hour. But if our flight time is over an hour, for legal to go, we only have to use the TAF. But then for an alternate, our ETA window can actually technically fall within the window of the TAF. So that's kind of a tricky one. Let me see if I can. We'll just use our state college. Okay, so we use our LDA into St. George. And we're going to pretend the weather is this UNV TAF. So to go along with your question of do we need the TAF or the alternate, let's say our flight time is like 1 hour and 5 minutes. So, thanks. So if we leave at, we'll just say like 0, 0. Actually, I shouldn't have put that. Okay, so if we leave at 0030, that means our ETA is going to be an hour and 5 after that. So our ETA is going to be at sorry, I meant for this to be a 1. Zero to 35. So 0235 is our ETA. We're leaving at 0130. This doesn't even. No, I meant for it to be 003. Wow. Okay, let's. Sorry. So we have to leave after this METAR. So if we're leaving at 0200, flight time of, let's just say, 1 hour. So we land at 03. Still doesn't even work. There are times when it works. I'll think of an example here in a minute. But okay. So we're gonna have ETAs of let's do we'll do 08 Zulu, do 1600 Zulu, and we'll do 1700 Zulu, and then we'll do a 19. So using the LDA approach for St. George, we'll do legal to go and does it need an alternate for those times based upon this TAF. All right, does everybody have it? Take that as a yes. Okay. Are we legal to go 8 Zulu? Are we legal to go for any of these or all of these? Not everybody all at once. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I got hung up when you said this is for SGU, because
We're just using
Yes.
the approach charts for this LDA, but we're going to use this TAF because St. George's TAF is beautiful, and I want to talk about SGU for a little bit. So we're just presenting this as the SGU TAF.
So yes, we're legal to go.
Yeah, we are. Basically, yeah, I just wanted to use St. George's charts here, but for this TAF that I got here. But yeah, so we're legal to go at 8 at all these. What were our minimums in St. George?
300 and 1/2.
Yep. So do we need an alternate 8 Zulu?
Yes, we do.
Do we need one at 16?
Yes, we do.
Do we need one at 17?
No, we don't.
Does anyone not agree with him?
All right, we're talking about 17, right?
Yeah, at 17 Zulu.
Well, at 1600, we would, because
Oh,
it's
yeah,
broken at 1500, right?
Yeah,
'Cause it's an hour before, now after.
yeah. So we do need an alternate.
Yeah, it goes down to 300.
What?
Yeah, we do, because it goes down to between 1630 and 24 Zulu. It goes down to 300, so yes, we do.
Well, we don't. This line is from 00 to 1330. This line is from 1630 until 24.
So at 1700, we would need an alternate.
Yeah, we would, because at 1600 it's going to be broken 1500. So at 1700 we still need an alternate. Because this is 1630. And so at 1600 we're still going to be forecasted to be at broken 1500. So at 1900 do we need an alternate?
Yes.
No,
Somebody said yes, somebody said no. We don't need one. So what's an hour before? 1800 Zulu, and we don't need one. Because we're still going to be broken 3000. So at 20 Zulu, what's our weather forecasted to be? Which line are we looking at?
So the last one still broken at 30.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's still gonna
1630.
be broken at 3,000. All right. I feel like there's still some people kind of stumbling a little bit. Is this just a practice thing, or is there anything I'm like not making clear on any of these? I mean, I'm sure like once you guys see more and more of them, that you'll be able to figure stuff out. What'd you say?
Oh, I just said I think it's just a practice thing.
Yeah, the more of them
Yeah,
you
I think
see.
you're doing a good job explaining it. It's just
Okay.
got to look at them a little more,
Well,
at
and
least for me.
yeah, and there's always so much. Like, I mean, I looked at like 100 of these things today. So for me, it's just like when I look at them, I don't know. So I was just making sure I didn't like glaze over anything.
Davis, quick question.
Uh huh.
Is broken considered to be a ceiling?
Yes. So broken and overcast are our ceilings.
Okay. Thank
Scattered
you.
and few, we don't really care too much about.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Why don't you guys come back at 8:45? We'll do one nav aid, two nav aid, and then we'll do some review stuff. Kind of just go over a few things for the quiz.
Sounds
Oh. Okay. Thank you. So we're talking about the two nav aid rule here for Santa Barbara. We have runway 7 and 25. So I added my 200 to the larger of the two um, mins for sealing there, and now I got to add my 1/2 to the larger of the two visibilities. So we're looking at 3 and 1/4 for the two nav aid.
Now, why would there be such a huge discrepancy between the two?
Well, a VOR doesn't have any vertical guidance on it.
Oh, I got you. I missed the fact that it was just VOR.
Yeah, it's just a VOR approach. So it's a nav aid, and at first we think about it and we're like, oh man, the two nav aid rule, because it just seems that all the examples that we give you, the two nav aid rule is better. So I wanted to show you one that was not better. So in this case, just because we have two nav aids, do we want to use them?
No way.
No way. Just on the one nav aid, we've got 600 and 1.5. Let's use that. Okay. So we've got about 30 minutes left. We've really got time for like one more though. San Diego is a good one. So in San Diego, we have runway 9 and 27. So, guys, take a minute and tell me what our lowest possible one nav aid rule minimums are. And then tell me what the lowest possible two nav aid rule, or well, I guess just what's the two nav aid rule minimums. So give everybody a minute to do it, and then we'll talk about it. All right, is anybody still working? Okay. So, which airport or which runway do we have lower minimums on?
Just regular minimums, 9.
Yeah, so 9.
Yeah, runway 9.
So runway 27 only has this localizer. Runway 9 has a full ILS. So immediately, when we look at the minimums for both, we know that runway 9 has lower minimums. So that's going to be the one that we would want to use our one nav aid rule off of. So what did everyone get for the one nav aid rule?
700, 1 3/4.
700, 1 3/4. Nice.
Agreed.
What did everyone get for the two nav aid rule on this?
900, 2 and 1.
900, 2 1/4. Does everyone agree with that? Awesome. Did anybody have any questions on that?
Real quick, on runway 9. So what's the difference between the 241 and the 734? Because normally it's like the ILS and the localizer, but what's the one where it says 750 and 734? What's the difference between that and the left one?
For this one, the rail so basically our approach light system's out on this one, and then the full.
Well, that's what I was just confused about, because the one on the left has the full and the rail / ALS out as well. So I didn't know which one. Like normally it has a,
Yeah, it specifies.
separates them.
And they're both ILS. Oh, okay. So it's this little note right here. So see the dark one. And then if you look down here in the note, missed approach requires a minimum climb of 270 feet per nautical mile to 4,000 feet. just, I mean, we can do that. So sorry if that was confusing.
Davis, I actually have a question on so with this one, going back to the 2 nav-aid rule, the 900 I got, but somebody said 2 1/4, but 1/2 plus 3/4 is 1 1/4. So what did I miss? Why is it 2 3/4, not 1 1/4?
For the 2 nav-aid rule, we have to use the higher of the two. So this one's 1 3/4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. So that's what I missed is the 1 3/4 below the. Okay. So basically what we have to do is, it doesn't really matter if we're aircraft category A, B, C, or D. We have to use whatever is the highest of everything operational.
Well, it does matter if we're A, B, C, or D. We are C. In the 700,
Okay.
we're a C.
Okay.
And different aircraft are going to be different. So basically, like A and B are slower. They can come in slower, and so they don't need as much visibility because they're, things aren't coming at them quite as fast. Whereas C and D are much faster. They're coming in at a higher speed. Yeah.
So does like the POH in an airplane tell you which class you fly in, or?
The what?
Does the air? How do you know which letter goes with your airplane?
I don't actually know where it specifically says it, but each airplane is assigned one, and it basically is just like how fast they come in at. I just know that the 700 is a C. I think that was gone over way back when we were doing aircraft specific stuff, possibly in the first week actually.
I guess I missed that.
Well, I mean, it was a long time ago, and it probably meant almost nothing to you at the time. So I can't really blame you. But yeah, we are a C. So once again, do we want to use the 1 nav-aid or the 2 nav-aid?
1 nav-aid.
Yeah, the 1 nav-aid. What's funny is that San Diego is also another one of those airports that they really only use one of their runways, and it's not 9. It's 27. I've only ever seen them switch to runway 9 once, and it was on Sunday. And it was only because the fog got down to, I think it was like 1.5 miles. So they had to switch.
So do a lot of airports on the coast go kind of east-west, or at least put the concrete east-west because of like the prevailing winds off the ocean?
Yeah. And you try and land into them. Yeah, San Fran, they land on the 2.8s. LA, they land on the 2.4s, 2.5s. Here, they land on the 2.7. Yeah, pretty much all like that. All right. I'm going to turn this off and okay, so if we're thinking back to weather, do you guys remember what ISA stands for?
International Standard Atmosphere.
Yep. And do you remember what it is?
The standard atmosphere of 2 plus or minus 2 degrees for 1,000 feet.
What do we start at? So what is
15
yeah.
Celsius.
So at sea level we're 15 degrees Celsius. Yeah. Do you guys remember what causes all weather?
Is that the uneven heating of the Earth's surface?
It is. Well done. Yeah, uneven heating of the Earth's surface. So basically everything comes from the sun, and then that's what causes our differences in pressure and wind and everything like that. All right, let's talk about different clouds. So why don't you guys name some different types of cloud formations and cloud types?
So there's cirrus clouds. They're like wispy. They're like above 18,000.
Uh-huh.
They're associated with super high winds, like really fast winds. That's why they're wispy.
Yeah, typically, yeah. And then, anybody else think of any?
Cumulonimbus.
Yep, cumulonimbus.
They're thunderstorms,
Yep.
and I think they look like anvils, like huge anvils in the sky.
Yeah, some of them can have the anvils. The really heavy ones are the ones that have the big anvils. And basically what that is that's the updrafts in them, and they're blowing all the way up to the stratosphere. And that's when they kind of anvil out as they hit that layer, and they have to like stop. And so it kind of like spews out to the sides of it. But some actually goes up into it, but then it comes back down. Let me see if I can find a good picture of that. They're really cool to see when you're flying. I guess the tropopause, not the stratosphere. Okay, come up clear. Okay, yeah, so all this updraft can create this anvil top. And so basically it hits and then wants to, it's like when you spill something on the ground, it wants to go to the sides. But some of it can actually get, if the updrafts are strong enough, some of it will actually get up into it. And what's really cool is I was flying from, I think it was like Salt Lake to Atlanta, and there were a ton of thunderstorms that we got to see, and they were all really cool. And a couple of them had these big anvil tops, and so we'd be flying way out beside them, like not over them. They were probably 45,000 foot tops. Some of them probably even 50,000 foot tops. But then you can see this like blowover, and it looks almost like this like wispy hair, and it was actually hail blowing out of the top of it. And so I was talking to the pilot, and he's like, "Yeah, he's like, you can't ever fly over that stuff." He's like, "Because if you hit that hail, I mean, we saw what happened with all the hail damage." And but he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "So it looks fine." He's like, "It looks just like a little tiny like wispy cloud at the top." He's like, "But it's actually hail." So I thought that was really cool. So yeah, those blow all the way up to the tropopause. We've also got nimbus clouds, stratiform clouds, cirriform cloud. Well, yeah, cirrus clouds is what you said. But All right. So what are the 3 stages of a thunderstorm?
Yeah, cumulus, mature, and um, uh, depreciating or whatever.
Dissipating.
Dissipating.
Yeah. So cumulus is when it's all building. That's when the updrafts are greater than the downdrafts. Mature is when they kind of equal out. And then dissipating at the end is when the downdrafts overpower it. What kind of fog do we have? There's a couple different types of fog. Can you guys
There's
name any?
radiation.
Yep, radiation. We've got radiation,
There's ice
advection.
fog.
What'd you say?
Ice fog.
Ice fog, yeah. We don't run into that one very much. Yeah, upslope fog, like you said.
Advection fog.
Yep, advection. Frontal fog is one of the cooler ones that I think.
Steam fog.
What'd you say?
Steam.
Yeah,
And
steam fog,
steam.
sorry. It
And
just came to me.
precipitation.
Yeah. Good. So what type of fog is associated with warm, moist air coming into contact with a cold surface?
It's a steam fog.
It's actually our advection fog.
Steam fog's the opposite, I think.
Over colder air. Warm air over cold air.
Is a cruel beast in the aviation world. Okay, so when we talk about icing on an aircraft, what kind of icing can we have for our aircraft that form on the aircraft?
Rime,
Is that
clear,
the rain?
rime, ice, clear ice, and I guess
Mixed ice.
Yeah, so there's mainly just rime and clear. Mixed is but mainly think of rime and clear. And then what kind of stuff can icing do to our airplane?
It changes the leading edges angle of attack,
Yep.
so you don't get the right kind of performance.
Yep.
And messes with your instruments,
Yep.
your pitot tubes, your sensors.
Decrease in lift.
Yep. Decrease in lift. It's going to be an increase in drag. It's going to increase the weight of the plane. And it
Also,
increases. Go ahead.
your fuel can freeze too. I've heard of fuel freezing, though, but I don't know if that's can be tested on.
It would have to be extremely cold. Our fuel will slush though at like really high altitudes, like during the winter. But do you remember the fuel oil heat exchanger that we were talking about?
Yeah, I think so. It like circulates it through.
Yeah, basically it circulates all the hot oil. It runs it right next to our cold fuel and heats up the fuel. and so we're spraying in liquid, not just like slush. But yeah, it can slush sometimes during the winter if we go up high. So, how often are METARs issued?
Every hour.
Every hour. And what are the 5 things that we have in a METAR?
Your date and time, your wind speed and direction, your type of precipitation.
That's actually not one of them.
Your cloud coverage.
Yep.
Your altimeter reading.
Yep. And the last
Temp
one?
and dew.
Temp and dew point. Nice. And then we talked about TAFs earlier. They're issued 4 times a day, every 6 hours. So why would a specie be issued?
If there was a change in the weather between each task.
Yeah, so some sort of significant change.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about PIREPs. How can we tell the difference between an urgent PIREP and a normal PIREP?
The UUA for urgent.
Yep.
And UA is normal.
Yep. What does the... So when we talked about high and low pressure systems, do you guys remember referring to those as cyclonic and anticyclonic?
One's clockwise and one's counterclockwise.
Yeah. So what is anticyclonic?
Counter.
Anticyclonic is actually clockwise. So it's a high pressure system that goes clockwise. Don't associate anti and counter. Think of them as opposites. And yeah, they go clockwise when they're in the northern hemisphere.
The anticyclonic go counterclockwise?
Anticyclonic goes clockwise. So think of them as like opposites almost. So like anticyclonic clockwise, and then cyclonic is counterclockwise. And then you remember the types of weather fronts that we talked about earlier? Remember all 4 of those?
Yeah, the cold, warm, occluded, and stationary.
Yep. Know how to read your METARs. So when we see in a METAR like 03014, so where is the wind coming from?
The northeast.
Yep. Yeah, so whenever we see our wind, the wind reading is always where it's coming from. So winds are from 030. Nice, guys. All right, what are some things that could affect our visibility?
Fog.
Yep.
Heavy precipitation, be it snow or rain.
Yeah. Yeah. Those blowing dust. That pretty much covers about most of the stuff you'd see. So what kind of conditions are we looking for when we talk about icing in the aircraft? What are the two things we talk about?
Contamination.
So we need two things to have icing on the aircraft.
The temperature dew point spread to be the same.
No, so we need visible moisture and freezing temperatures.
What was the temperature? It was like 30 something degrees Celsius or 52 Fahrenheit.
So we typically plan for icing at like 10 degrees and below. That's when it can actually happen. But for the for the two things, you need freezing temperatures and visible moisture. So do you guys remember talking about microbursts?
Yes.
Do you remember talking about some of the things that can detect them?
Oh, clouds, right?
So microbursts are going to be caused by clouds producing like heavy downdrafts. And then we actually have microburst detection systems and low-level wind shear detection systems. And those are typically on the field of the airport. So why would we avoid an ash cloud, volcanic ash cloud?
You can turn the glass in the engine, right?
Yeah, and it'll just tear up your engine. I actually had on Christmas Day this past year, I had a plane going into Mexico City, and we got halfway down there, and all of a sudden this big ash tam popped up, and it was right next to the Mexico City airport, and I was flying down to Mexico City. Well, I was dispatching a plane that was going down to Mexico City, and I saw it, and I was like, oh no, we may be in for a diversion. And I didn't have, it wasn't forecasted or anything, and I didn't have that much extra fuel on that flight. And so we ended up having to call down to Mexico City Tower, and ask them if it was affecting arrivals. We called like a WSI specialist. The whole time I'm like having to type out like everything extremely detailed to the pilot to keep him involved. We had to do all sorts of stuff just to make sure that this plane was going to be okay to land. And we had to do it all pretty quickly too, because they were soon passing their last opportunity to land before this other airport, before Mexico City. And but I remember one of the things we talked about was that clouds, like ash clouds, can look just like clouds, and you still, I mean, you just can't fly into them. Like it looks like white wispy clouds in the air. Because I was even watching a live feed of the volcano, and it was pretty cool. It was very interesting. But yeah, the pilot he's like, we just won't fly into any of it. And Mexico City said they were being able to do approaches that weren't affected by it. So we decided it was safe to continue, and it ended up being just fine. But kind of interesting. That's the only time I've ever really come in contact with volcanic ash cloud. Do y'all remember talking about RVSM? you remember what it stands for?
I think I forgot.
So it's
I don't remember what it's for, but that's the distance tracking while up in the air, right?
yeah, so it's reduced vertical separation minima. So that's from 290 all the way up to 410. And that's when we only have the 1,000 feet of separation. I'd go back and look at that if I were y'all. And then in our navigation charts, do you remember the different types of airways we have?
Victorways and jetways.
Yep. And then there's one more. We have some RNAV airways too. We also have Q and T routes. Nobody really talks much about T routes, but they're just low-level RNAV routes. So mainly we have jet routes, Victor routes, and Q routes. And then what about airspace? Do you guys remember talking about airspace?
There's I think there's 5 classes of airspace. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and Golf.
Okay, I'll give you. I would say go back and look at most of those airspaces and kind of just take the general ideas from each and kind of know where our major airports are in, our smaller airports are in, and what we fly in, stuff like that. I would go back and kind of review all that stuff. Well, alrighty. Does anybody have any questions?
Was the test tomorrow?
Yeah, I believe the quiz is going to be tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, because Garrett told me to go ahead and review tonight. Well, all right. If not, you guys have a good night.
You too. See you tomorrow.
You too. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.